Alright guys, we're approaching the end of the month. Now it's time to continue this series with my top 100 favorite movies of all time. Let's just jump right into number 90 to 81. Number 90. Richard Donner's Superman. This is the movie that really showed that comic book movies can be taken seriously if you really stay faithful to the source material and you get a bunch of high-profile actors to be in them. Long before Iron Man, long before The Dark Knight, it was Richard Donner's Superman. Christopher Reeve is phenomenal in the role. He is the best Superman, and the reason he makes Superman interesting, the reason why people love him, is because he gave Superman a personality. Lex Luthor's plot is kind of ridiculous, and the ending does open a whole box of questions, just if you think about it too much, but overall it's got some great sequences to it. It's got some beautiful, beautiful moments. The John Williams score is iconic. The chemistry between Christopher Reeve and Margaret Kidder as Lois Lane are really good. The only thing that really hurts this movie though is that its sequel is the better one. Speaking of which, number 89. Superman 2. Which one? Either one will do. What makes this movie better than the first Superman for me is the dynamic between Clark Kent and Lois Lane. With Clark Kent trying to balance his life as boring Clark Kent and then heroic and stoic Superman is something that makes him a little more relatable. I mean, you can forget the fact that he flies, you can forget the fact that he shoots lasers, he can move faster than a speeding bullet. He still feels very real. But outside of that whole thing, I think it has a better villain with General Zod, played by Terrence Stamp. If you really want to know which version I prefer, like point a gun at my head or I'll die, the Richard Donner cut, I think, is better. Because it's a little tighter, it makes Lois Lane feel like a smarter character than she was in the theatrical version, and it got rid of some silly moments from the theatrical version, like Superman taking the S off his chest and throwing it at one of Zod's henchmen. But whichever version you watch, Superman 2 for me is the best Superman movie. Number 88. Field of Dreams. This is an interesting pick for me because I'm not much of a sports guy, but Field of Dreams is not really about baseball. Baseball is more like a driving force for the film's actual plot, and as the title of the movie suggests, the baseball field that Kevin Costner's character makes is not really for baseball. It's for all these characters to come together who've failed at something once in their life and are given a second chance to fulfill their dreams. And speaking of Kevin Costner, he's fantastic in this role. Ray Liotta's great, James Earl Jones is great, the score by the late James Horner is phenomenal. I watched this movie for the first time 3 years ago and did a review of it as soon as I saw it, and I was just so surprised at how great this movie is and how much I loved it, so much so that it's on my best of. Number 87. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. For the longest time, I was always a Star Wars guy, but once I actually started getting into the series thanks to J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan definitely lives up to the hype with what everyone says about this movie. It's a very personal battle between Khan and Captain Kirk. It's just got some really great suspense to it. The score by James Horner is fantastic. This was before he did Aliens, so I feel like this may have put him on the map as one of the great composers out there. And the death of Spock, even though everyone knows about it, is surprisingly heartbreaking. Out of all the original Star Trek movies, this is easily the best one, and one of the few Star Trek movies that can actually rival the best of Star Wars. I love it. Number 86. Rango. I could see a lot of you right there probably scratching your heads because when this movie came out, everyone was talking about it, and then after a while, it just kind of faded from memory. I don't get why. This is a fantastic animated movie. It's very unique, it's psychedelic, it's downright weird, it's very adult, but never in a gross-out humor way like Sausage Party. More like it's very mature. It feels like a real Western. Even though Gore Verbinski really did screw something big with The Lone Ranger, with Rango, he really captured the style of those old spaghetti Westerns. And it's just such a very, very unique movie that I wish more people would talk about. It's got a great score by Hans Zimmer. All the character designs are so unique and imaginative. Just go see Rango. It is really one of the best animated movies of this decade. Number 85. How to Train Your Dragon. This is probably DreamWorks' most mature movie, and when I saw this for the first time, it wasn't in the theaters, sadly, so I missed out on theaters. But I was surprised at how heartfelt the movie is. I was surprised at how amazing the score is. The Oscar-nominated score, I gotta say. The dynamic between your two characters, Hiccup and the dragon Toothless, is just very believable, to the point where Toothless is not just a pet to Hiccup, but an actual friend. And the ending shocked me. Just in case you haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon, I won't say what the ending is, but it's something where I watched it and went, for a DreamWorks movie, I've never seen them do that before. That's really ballsy. So this movie took me by surprise. I absolutely love it. The series has really proven itself to be one of DreamWorks' most mature movies, and I can't wait to see the third one. But as of now, I doubt it can surpass this first one. This first one right here is one of the best movies DreamWorks has to offer. Number 84. Captain America, the First Avenger. And yeah, you knew this had to come up at some point because I'm wearing the shirt. I just love Captain America, the First Avenger. I know a lot of people give this movie crap, but the reason why I consider this one of my favorite movies of all time is that it was the movie that really made me respect the character of Steve Rogers. Because I didn't know much about Captain America, but when I first saw this movie, I was really blown away and surprised at how great the direction is. The action scenes are really fun. Chris Evans nails the role of Steve Rogers, and he has continued to do so in the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I always loved Spider-Man because he was much younger and you could relate to him when you're a kid or a teenager, but as an adult, I can see myself identifying with Captain America a lot more. And the only thing that this movie suffers from, like with Richard Donner's Superman, is that its sequels are superior. And you'll see those two movies pop up in this list at some point. Where they'll pop up, I'm not gonna say. Number 83. Back to the Future Part 2 and 3. Outside of Lord of the Rings, this is the only time I'm gonna cheat with this list and put two movies in the same slot. The original Back to the Future is an all-time classic. We all know that. It's brilliantly written, it's suspenseful, it's funny, it's just got everything you want, and obviously it's gonna pop up on this list at some point. But for me, I really do love Back to the Future 2 and 3. The second movie seamlessly continued the story at a point when they didn't think they were going to make a sequel. It's got a lot of interesting ideas for, well, the now outdated 2015, and it can be surprisingly dark. And when you get to Back to the Future 3, I just love a closing chapter to a trilogy. It's the weakest, sure, but with these two movies, I really can't watch them without the other. These two movies are dependent on each other, whereas with the first Back to the Future, you could watch that on its own. If I were to judge these movies separately, they might not be on my best of list, but because I think of the two of them together, they're good enough to end up in my list of favorite movies. Number 82. Seven Samurai. This was the first movie I saw from Akira Kurosawa, and while it was a very long watch, in fact, I actually think it took my dad and I 2 days to actually see this movie from beginning to end. It really impressed me. I was in that phase of being really snobby about older movies unless it had a giant monster in it, like Godzilla, but Seven Samurai was just something I'd never seen before. It was grand, it was epic, and for being made in 1954, it holds up today. The performances are outstanding from all your leads, and it's such an influential movie. If you've never seen Seven Samurai, well, first of all, go see it because it's a masterpiece. You've probably seen little homages, and other movies have really pulled influence from Seven Samurai and a majority of Kurosawa's work. It's not my favorite Kurosawa movie, but it's definitely impactful enough to be one of my favorite movies. Number 81. Finding Nemo. When this movie came out back in 2003, I remember it being one of my least favorite Pixar movies, and it all had to do with Marlin. I just found him annoying, obnoxious, but watching this movie as an adult, I felt so bad for saying that Marlin was obnoxious, because he is put in a position where he's lost his son and he has to find him, so of course he'd be panicked like this. And when you watch the opening of the movie where he loses his wife and all of his other unborn children, that can really take a toll on him. And besides the personal story there, it's a gorgeous movie. It's beautifully animated. It's very heartfelt. There was a reason why at the time this was Pixar's highest grossing film, because it just left such an impact the way The Lion King did. And yeah, as time goes on, I love this movie even more. And there you go, that does it for part 2 of my top 100 favorite movies list. I'll be back at the end of July to talk about my favorite movies from 80 to 71. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below on what your favorite movies of all time in this section are. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.